Hello again, everyone. This is Randy, your sewing machine man, and today what we're looking at is a special treat brought to me from down in the valley from a good friend named George. I call him Professor George because he's an academic, he's a teacher, a scholar, and a pretty good replicator of sewing machine needles. That's what this is. This is a huge, gigando sewing machine needle for the purposes of illustration, to help people understand what a sewing machine needle does. Well, just the long and short of it is, it goes through the fabric and locks a stitch, and it does it in a very clever way. There's a groove that George has provided here in the needle to scale, and you see the thread lies in that groove. So when you're sewing, it's part of the needle. It's down out of sight. It's down recessed below the surface there. And then down here where the point of the needle is, speaking of the point, this is a ball point. It's not sharp. Most of the new machine needles nowadays are ball points. When you're sewing, the needle will go down through the fabric and everything's nice and tight, but when it goes through, it gets to the bottom of its stroke, and as it starts to rise, it forms a loop like that, and then a hook comes through and catches it, and that's what locks the daggone stitch. Here's what a hook looks like. See, the needle goes down right in between there. You can see that. I get a little emphasis pointer here. When the needle comes down, it goes right across this little notch here, little bevel, goes down in between, and as it rises back up, this is swung to the left, and as it comes back across, it comes through and catches the thread and the notch, which is called a scarf, which is cut out here very nicely by George for me. It comes through and catches that, then that locks the thread around the bobbin. So when I talk to my customers about, is your needle in correctly, because they'll say it's skipping stitches, I'll tell them to make sure the flat spot is either to the back if it's a front load, make sure it's to the side if it's a direct side load, or sometimes the exception to the rule is it's to the left if it's like a Singer 221 featherweight or 301. And of course, those also thread from the other side, so they're different from this one. But normally when your needle's to the back, flat sides to the back, I ask my customers to take their thumbnail and run it the length of the needle from the eye all the way up to where the shank starts spreading out. Nowadays, that's about the only way to know if your needle's in correctly. Because back in the old days, there was a real pronounced flat side. I mean, it was really flat and sharp. Nowadays, it's barely there, and it's almost round. It's real easy. Once you start putting the needle in, the daggone thing will flip on you, and you're like, what the heck just happened? It's not sewing right. You double check it always. Whenever you tighten it down, put it up in, push it all the way up to the stop point, and the needle clamp, and when you're clamping it down. And always, after you do that, you always take your thumbnail, run it the length of the needle as it's facing you, feel that groove in there, and then you're ready to go ahead and thread and get started. So that's just an illustration. That's the scarf. The thread comes in, always comes in on the side with the long groove. Wherever the long groove is, the thread always comes in from that side. The flat side's always opposite that. And that's how you know you got your needle in correctly. And again, thanks for George. He came up in the valley to see the Cowboy game, and he brought this to me. And he was telling me about it, but I had no idea it was going to be so cool. So I just wanted to get that out there for you. A little illustration. I have a customer that's going to call me later about a Bernina, because we're going to make sure she has her needle in right. And that's going to help her get this figured out. So I appreciate the show and tell from George, my good friend down the valley. Thanks.